Hello everyone and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Untitled Chapter. I'm the editor of the tech section here at EVN Report. Our guest this week was Sona Veziryan, the director of the Business Angel Network of Armenia. She joined us to provide a review of the progress and developments within Armenia's tech ecosystem throughout 2023. Sona offered insights into the variety of companies she encounters as an investor and the kinds of companies she aspires to see more of in Armenia in the future. She also shared with us her thoughts on the state of the investment landscape, both in Armenia as well as tech globally, and what she expects in 2024. Lastly, Sona shared her thoughts on how to popularize angel investing in Armenia. Thank you for listening. Sona, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Let's start with exploring the story of BANA a little bit. I know you guys were the first angel network in Armenia, and you launched, I think, in 2017. Is that right? So it's about 6-7 years ago now. Tell us how that came about, and what did the angel investing and VC landscape look like in Armenia back then?
Yeah, it was pretty new back then, everything. 2017, we had only Granados, I guess, there, and SmartGate was just starting. And there was a basic need that startups were going to Baltics for some 30K investments, or going to some other countries to gain their early stage money, which was small amounts, not going out for like Series A's or bigger rounds. Right. So yeah, the need was definitely there, and the idea came up early 2017, and in mid to late it was realized. The first activities were really hard to pull together. Because the concept was really new. People didn't know what angel investing is, and the potential investors, you needed to explain them every time where they're coming, what is it. And, the first couple meetups were not structured like classic angel investing. They were not still members, and it all like pulled together at the end of the year. And we had couple demo days back then. And yeah, we recently were looking to the startups that, for instance, Staff AM was in our first demo day, and and to several startups that are not alive, unfortunately, now. Naturally. So yeah, it was really hard to pull up, but we had several like activities that I think facilitated the process. We invited experienced angels into Armenia to meet with potential angels, and also overall to have conferences and events that will be also open, so that every interested people would have an opportunity to come and learn and see what is angel investing, figure out whether it's for them or not. And those activities, I think, had their significant impact on getting where we are now. It's not like we are next Silicon Valley, but the culture is definitely more spread into community. That's for sure. And now one of the biggest challenges is to get it outside of our small bubble of tech community. And yeah, there are a lot of ways to expand and to move forward. So yeah, a lot of work needs to be done.
That first cohort of angels that you guys were able to attract to the network, who were they typically? Like, what type of people were they? What backgrounds did they have?
Yeah, definitely it was easier to attract people from tech background rather than non-tech. But interestingly, at the beginning, we had both. We now have one of our most active angels, and she's not a tech-related person, but now she's really like into tech investor. She knows where to look at, what questions to ask, what aspects are important for her. And yeah, initially it was a kind of a mix of tech leaders and non-tech people who were more open-minded and had bigger visions to start exploring alternative investments.
These were people with business backgrounds who had accumulated some wealth over the years and were looking to invest, I guess?
Yeah. Mostly current entrepreneurs. Typically, that there are like three definitions of angel investors, right? They are ex-entrepreneurs, like retired people, usually before 2010, when this second wave startup boom took place, angels were considered more old people who are already retired from their businesses or from their C-level jobs and got wealth and want to, make money, also interact, socialize, get all the benefits of angel investing, be on the path of entrepreneurship, like interact with youth and stuff like that. But then we got this kind of startup boom in all over the world, especially US, and they ones who exited or made good, like successful stories somehow, early investors and stuff like that, they changed the face of angel investor, which currently is younger. It can be 20-something years old, already maybe exited founder or current specialist. So they are like entrepreneurs, current ones, and specialist professionals, top-ranked executives who also consider angel investing as their kind of a side thing to do. Yeah.
Right, what's the numbers today look like compared to 2017? Has the network considerably grown?
Yeah, so we tried different things. I would say we try to work with different kind of potential angels, and currently network is mostly tech-related people. Leaders, founders, specialists, top specialists, and yeah, we got also other people from other industries who are active. Currently, we are 50 angels, kind of equally distributed. Half are in Armenia, and second half are all over the world at all the ends. And that's where we are now.
What do you see as the potential for? So you mentioned how in Silicon Valley, people who had been at like big companies for a long time, they had good compensation packages, equity in different companies and stuff. They started becoming angels, and also non-tech people who had been in other sectors and had done well and wanted to diversify their investments started becoming angels. What do you see as the opportunity to bring in more of those people into Armenia's angel network? By those types of people, I don't mean the Americans, although I guess that would be good too. But I mean Armenian engineers who have been working at great companies for more than 10 years now and have built up some savings that they can diversify into startup investments, or people from other Armenian sectors that have done well, instead of putting it into what are more traditional investments in Armenia, put them into interesting and exciting startups to help the ecosystem grow. Do you guys think about that? Or
yeah, sure. This year we did our first trial, I would say, of angel training, but it went really successful. We didn't want it to look like as a typical training, with sessions and stuff like that. We had only a couple of presentations, and then it was all practical. We had experienced angels presenting or sharing their experience. We organized several online and offline meetups with them, and the second big part was visiting our portfolio company offices, those who already grew to some 70-80 people and have nicer offices, and the founders were telling the story how they raised the angel investment specifically, how it helped them to grow, how they're working with their angels now. And this kind of training, I'm really, I didn't decide yet whether to call it a training or not, because it was like series of meetups and talks. It's like a networking sessions. Training and stuff like that. Yeah, so we had 5 people participating in the first batch this summer, and had super positive feedback to all the participants. They were like, now we totally understand the whole picture, how it is working, the flow, it gave them like a big picture overview of angel investing, and also give them like initial network, to go if they want to discuss a deal. They got also people inside who they know and they can contact. This was one of the activities we tried to make it accessible for those who might be interested in it. There are a couple myths in angel investing, I believe, from the perspective of wider society, that it's like super expensive. I don't know, you need to have hundred thousands or millions of dollars in your bank account to start doing angel investing. So that's not the case. You just need to figure out your strategy, and the tickets per startup are usually 10 20K, so that's the typical ticket. So it's not like you need something for starting angel investing. And the simplest strategy should be like at least 10 startups in the portfolio for upcoming 3-4 years. So it means like average 3 investments in a year. So that's
$30,000 to $60,000.
That's the typical thing, and I do know that it's much accessible for many people. The thing is, the lack of knowledge, general knowledge, and maybe the absence of wide promotion of the topic in the country makes it that people, put the money as deposit in the bank.
Yeah, or worse.
But
spend it on other things.
And what's the beauty of angel investing? Because it's like high risk, but also high return investment. So here you make exits. So average, it's like 30 IRR. But you can make much more. And I know non-Armenian angels who had 2,000x exit. So it's like
it's not bad.
It's
your 10,000
like
suddenly becomes much more. It's also a much more interesting type of investing because, you can't bank on startups are extremely risky. Obviously, you can't bank on it, retiring a year or something. But if you've put money into an early stage company, and let's say you're like a computer vision engineer at Pixart or some great company and have considerable experience, and you see some very early stage computer vision startup getting started, you have an opportunity to impact that company through your skill set and your expertise as well. So you have a way of being directly involved in something that's really at the early stage that has the potential to become something big. And I think that should be something that's attractive for a lot of people. It's not just putting your money in some index fund and getting 8% a year or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. We work with newbie angels to define their strategy, and it can be like you said, or it can be totally opposite. So if you are a specialist in a certain area, you might want to invest only in the startups that are in your domain of specialty, and in this case, you can directly impact into their success. So it's like you are investing, and then you bring some network or knowledge, or become advisor and help them to succeed. Or even if you got some network of angels, other angels, that's also good. For some investments and etc. And there is the opposite of that, which is the strategy of one of the godfathers of angel investing. He says that I invest in areas that I don't understand.
Why?
That's his thing, because he is also Jason Calacanis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he also kind of involved in several activities himself, like startups, businesses, whatever. And he's like, if I am like expert in the domain, I already got something going on, like my own business in that area, and I invest to diversify in other fields that I'm not expert. Right. So there are many strategies to explore. Right. But the beauty is that it's not like science. You don't need to have a finance degree to calculate. So it's more like an art, because it has a lot of human factor. So networking, talking with people, having these connections, going to events. So it's more like a kind of lifestyle. Some people call it lifestyle. Some people call it, hobby or whatever. But it's more like part of life, which is not, work calculated and structured in a certain way. Right. Like startups can come from anywhere. Like there are stories that hairdresser advised a startup and
Right. Yeah. One thing, just as you were saying that, I got curious about. It's like I know in the U.S., for example, typically to do, I think for angel investing as well, you have to have an accredited investor status. So that usually involves like I think $250,000 in salary or wealth accumulated. Does that apply to Armenian individuals as well? Are there any financial requirements before you write a $5,000 check or a $10,000 check?
That's we don't have such a law in Armenia, although the investments are done in the US, but like we're not kind of residents there.
So it doesn't apply to us.
I need to check that with lawyer, but we didn't have that issue that someone asked for some documents of show me your bank account balance to see whether you get that much money or not.
Okay, so that's good. That makes it even more accessible because those requirements would be quite challenging. They're challenging even in the US. Let's speak a little bit about BANA's. Actually, before we do that, BANA fits into sort of like a family of organizations. There's BANA, which is your business angel network. There's Formula VC, which is a full-fledged VC firm. There's The Factory, which is sort of a community hub and where you guys incubate some of the startups that you've invested in. Why is there a need for a VC firm and an angel network within sort of this family of organizations? Like, what are the different roles that each plays?
Yeah, the VC fund was founded in early 2021, but the idea was from 2019, I would say. It again came with the need, and all the structure of the fund was was done based on the research we did at that time to figure out what size it should be, where it should invest, where we can succeed, and it kind of naturally came that the startups were getting their next rounds after angel investing, and even without that, and we had initially investors who didn't have much time to look at the deals themselves and explore and make decisions. And they were like, can we just give you the money and then you decide where to invest? So those both grew together at some period of time. And then the Formula VC was born, which now also has institutional investors. And we call it kind of community fund because major tech companies and individuals are inside the fund as LPs, and already did 16 investments. So the majority of the portfolio is already there. We will do some free for maximum 5 next year, and
let's talk about the year BANA had. I noticed that you guys were quite active in investing, especially in some early stage startups. Tell us about what companies you've been investing in and how it's been going.
We invested in 6 startups this year, and a couple are non-announced, but I will briefly talk about them as well. Our one of our most successful companies now is 10Web, which we invested earlier this year and have several X growth during this short period. And one of the companies is Armbionics, which is a hardware-related medtech startup. And I'm especially proud of this case because anything related to hardware is not that easy in Armenia to implement, to create, and then produce, and especially to raise investments for that. And I'm really proud that we managed to invest in the company. We plan a kind of event around this to promote the company, and also to thank the angels who jumped into this deal. And we will announce also the numbers, so stay tuned for that.
It's interesting. I was noticing some of the I don't know what you would call it, rounds or ticket sizes that you guys were doing in these companies were quite large. I think in Viral Mango you announced 170, which is typically the amount that we see Armenian VC firms, the check sizes that we see Armenian VC firms writing. So you guys almost act like a mini VC, not even a mini, just it's like a VC with a lot of with just a bunch of angels that are interested in that company, I guess, right? Because I guess maybe my understanding is incorrect, but typically I was under the impression that angel networks, like you guys present those companies to your angels, obviously, and then angels decide to make the investment. But are you guys like sort of grouping angels together that are interested in a company and then making a larger investment, or how does that process work?
Actually, Viral Mango, and we had several cases like this, is classic case when we had syndicate investments and direct investments. So when startups are raising larger amounts, they don't want small tickets in their round, and also they want to keep the cap table clean. So in this case, we set up syndicate, which gives the angels opportunity to jump into deal with smaller tickets, and like it's a win-win for everyone. And we had several cases when they, for instance, say our minimum check is 50K, which is which is a little more for average maybe investor, but we had several people who invest that amount. So those who invest 50 or more, they get into deal directly. And for others who invest like 10K tickets, we set up a syndicate, and like we invest with both kind of ways, vehicles. And this is Viral Mango is one of these cases. And our biggest tickets were actually the combination of both. The biggest one we did was almost 500K, but it was in a good year of 2021, which we don't live anymore.
It's an anomalous year. What do you guys see mostly of with the startups that you guys are speaking with? What are Armenian founders working on, or more interestingly, what are they not working on? What are some of the gaps that you're seeing that you like to have them address?
Actually, that's the beauty, I believe, for the small ecosystem, because we get so diverse industries, not related. Maybe that's a drawback at some end because you are not focusing on something as a country. But that's interesting because you also have a lot of diaspora Armenians who come with different backgrounds. They might come to here, set up some offices, some operations, and then go. So it's a pretty diverse. What we wanted to see more is like more this trendy topics now, generative AI startups, and some other industries related to it, like DevOps optimization and
MLOps,
stuff like that, which we don't see that much. I think that those are the gaps that now, if you're listening to me, you're an engineer, you can solve, find solutions, and that's the trend in the world,
The MLOps space particularly is quite interesting because when we're thinking about AI startups now, actually even taking a step back, like one thing that I noticed, and one of our writers is writing about this now, is if you look at almost every Armenian startup now, and not just Armenian startups, basically it's just tech companies in the world, every company incorporated generative AI features into their products this year, because AI capabilities before were limited to people who could build and train their own models. Now they're easy to use APIs that people can just plug in. And they're also so capable now that it's worth putting them into your products. But the MLOps companies require serious machine learning expertise to be able to implement them. And it's exciting that in Armenia, we do have a few that are really good in that space, like Monot, which I think is one of your portfolio companies, does that. Superannotate is in that space. We have Active Loop and companies like that. But encouraging them, I think, requires really building up the AI, really fundamental AI talent, not just people who use GPT-4 as like to integrate into products, but really fundamental, like building AI system talent in the country. So I think until we have that at a greater scale, it's hard to compete with the big MLOps players in the world, like the Databricks and stuff of the world. But hopefully with this recent announcement that we're going to have an AI institute in the country, maybe that'll help foster some of that talent.
From my personal observations, like American University have a data science department now, well, for already maybe 6-7 years. And of course, the classic Polytechnic University has graduates, from my personal observations, because maybe also this downturn in the market and the kind of recession in the air, a lot of graduates have hard time finding internship and entry-level jobs in the AI field, machine learning, data science, and stuff like that, because they, everyone wants someone with a little experience at least, or they don't want to spend time on training the juniors. So we had a better situation 2-3 years ago, and from my observation, that's a bigger challenge now, to give opportunity to graduates of specific specialized industries, right? They're not like computer science students who want to go there. They went to data science specifically to study that. So to give them opportunities to realize themselves, and otherwise they might go to other countries to find prospective jobs.
Or just do traditional software engineering.
Yeah,
which is not bad, but you're losing that specialized talent that you work to build, right?
It's like, why I need to study that for this much years when I'm going to do
what you could have done in less time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So you would say generative AI is the primary trend that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, definitely.
Mostly like what is now known as like AI wrapper companies, or are you seeing things more fundamental than
that? Both. Yeah, of course it's easier, like faster, the first ones you mentioned, but yeah, I believe that there are startups coming, but it takes like years, as you know. They are building their own engines and maybe utilizing also the current ones, widely spread ones, but it's not like a landing page on top of ChatGPT to ask specific questions. Yeah.
We've spoken about this with a few other guests in the past, but I think you're the first investor we're speaking to about this. How do you guys as investors, you're looking to write a check into a company, and it almost sounds like derogatory, but these AI wrapper companies, like companies that are largely just, their tech is based on another technology provider like OpenAI or Google. They're using their APIs. How do you think about that, the defensibility of that? Is that something that concerns you guys, or is the traditional aspects of startup building, like just being obsessed about the user, solving some real problem, good enough to get the to look past the lack of defensibility of the technology side, because they're not the ones that built the core tech that the product uses?
It's not like you can not to invest in those companies, because a lot of startups that you might consider like successful now also had their tech backing on some other technologies. It's also a concern, like you mentioned, and we try to overcome that by doing technical due diligence. So in the BANA network, we have people with tech background, and they support the technical due diligence in if there is a need. And in Formula VC, in our investment board, we also have people with tech background, especially specialized into AI startups. So we always like involve them in these cases, because I think it's a little like threshold of both, like how much is that they are doing great as a startup, and then how much is it that it's like a drawback of using other softwares. So it's a threshold, and you need to assess per company the
so there's equals. Like a level of how do you assess that? Can you give a hypothetical example?
It's really case by case. It's because the first thing you do as an investor, you look at the founders, look at the team. So if you have some inspiring founder who is also expert in certain field, they are doing the startup, it covers a lot of gaps that you see in the startup. So the first thing, of course, is the founder. Then you look at the market. How big is the market? That's I think for us the second parameter, because a lot of startups have built also in Armenia, and you know the names, whose market is not large enough even to become 100 million valuation startup company. And and then you go into other details, and then it comes the product, it comes all the terms of the deal and stuff like that. We of course the valuation is important, but if you have a superstar team that overcomes the valuation, and you don't drop the deal because the valuation is high and stuff like that. So it starts with the team and goes the way. I think it's case by case and depending on the chemistry of the deal.
Sure.
You got also the formulas and stuff like that, but it's not the main core of decision driver, of decision making.
There's a lot of intuition involved in it as well, I think.
Oh, of course, yeah. If you ask any successful angel investor from US, they talk about serendipity, about
gut feeling,
stuff like that.
Non-scientific stuff. It's also interesting that I can't remember who it was on the podcast. They made this point that 15 years ago, the Instagrams of the world and the Facebooks of the world, they were largely AWS wrappers. At the time, scaling large apps was quite difficult. AWS came along, Amazon's server business, and made it very easy to scale. And we saw an explosion of mobile and online businesses like Instagram and Facebook and the others of the Web 2.0 era. And their defensibility wasn't really anything great either, right? If you think of it just from a technical perspective. But then to your point, the founder of Instagram, Kevin Systrom, now has an AI wrapper company, and I imagine he didn't have a hard time raising for it, given who he is, right? So, what's something you're seeing that you're most excited about in the Armenian ecosystem? What founders are working on? Something that gives you a lot of hope and excitement for the future?
I believe one of the most exciting things in Armenian ecosystem is that you find hidden gems. You find startups that were working without communicating with tech community or Armenian entities, but they got a nice client base, nice product in specific niche, and it can be something gaming or some not the products that we see a lot in the country. And then you suddenly figure out, they're building this for 2 years, they got a nice amount of users or clients, and they are progressing, and they suddenly figure out that they can go out and talk to other people. And this is one of the nicest things I enjoyed throughout the period of this 5-6 years mostly at BANA, and I believe we will see more experienced founders who worked in large company or in tech startup, in Armenian startup, which the Pixar gave birth to so many startups now. And then when they decide to do a startup, that's completely different level of expertise and knowledge, especially in Pixar, I believe, because they are a startup, not a regular tech company. They also see all these milestones, how startup puts it, or negotiations, or they raised a round, so it's a big announcement, or even they got scared about how the board is working, and you need to create reports for the board and stuff like that. So it's really seeing your kind of desired future working in a huge startup. And once we get more companies with several hundred million valuation or unicorns in the country, that will escalate, lift up the ecosystem to the next level. And it is important, bringing back to your question to angel investing, it is important that once we had cool exits, with good numbers, and we got people from startups who got money, then they need to know that the cycle of ecosystem works if they come back and invest a reasonable portion of this money back into other startups. And this is how the cycle works, and also for investors too. So when they make good exit, then they well, not fully, but some portion of this money bring back to the ecosystem. Yeah. And you can do it even fully. It depends on how how excited you are about the ecosystem. And this is not announced yet, and probably we will do it next year. But angels don't need to wait for a huge, I don't know, acquisition or something. Not IPO, definitely, to exit the company. And partial exits are more typical cases when the startup is raising next round or the following round. It can be Series B or whatever, or even earlier, depending on how valuation is growing. Angels can exit, do a partial exit, and we had a small case like that. Small because a few angels decided to exit from the company, but big in a way that they made like almost 10x out of this exit.
Right. And it was return.
It's in several years, which is a super amazing return, and 10x is like typical dream return for angels. So
is that also the case for employees with equity? Like, can they exit during the Series B or the Series C? Or
it depends on the policies. I know some startups have some policies that only in case of M&A or IPO they can exit, but majority, like the typical case is that you can realize your shares, so options to shares, and then shares when you have opportunity.
For a full exit.
Before full exits.
That's fantastic. I think as we see even the full exits in the Armenian ecosystem, and for a few years now, it's been rumored that a few big names might might IPO.
We're waiting.
Once that happens, hopefully we'll see a flood of angel investments in the country. But as you said before, like preparing the ecosystem for that through like the trainings or the introducing of the topic to inside those companies until then is important, so that we fully capture the value of those events. But speaking of like just the state of investments, since we are talking about like the recapping the year, last year when we did this recap, the sort of tech economic crisis had just started to unfold, and there was a lot of layoffs, and investment had dried up a lot, and things of that nature. And it seems like 2023, that trend kind of continued. Layoffs were less, I think, but we didn't see any we didn't see a huge uptick in venture investing. And even in Armenia, I think you can't compare it to, like you said, 2021, which like every week it was like someone raised $10 million.
Normal day.
What do you, can you give us an evaluation of sort of where we are now? And also those companies that did have those amazing 2021s, typically we were used to seeing startups raise their subsequent round in 18 to 24 months. And now it's been like more than 30 months. So are you guys concerned that the subsequent rounds are not happening, or is there things being done to mitigate that, like bridge rounds and stuff? Or?
There have been a couple of cases when we mitigated it with the pitch rounds. I started from the end. But I'm kind of now optimistic about the 2024 because I believe that we hit the bottom low this year, and maybe even last quarter, Q3. But there's several projections. Some say that it will be in 2024. It's not going to come back, but I want to be on the positive side of the things. And I believe the worst is already behind, and the startups. It's important, to notice that Armenian startups, not all, but we got some good startups who always cared about sustainability, and we're not living from investment to investment.
Right.
So this is now the trend in the world because of the current situation. Big funds, they look into more revenue-based startups who can live even if the crisis continues even longer. So in our portfolio, those who are pre-Series A are in their way to even increase the numbers and make it more suitable for Series A. So I am pretty positive that they will manage to raise Series A next year, and we are waiting for those announcements. And if the market gets back even a little, we will definitely have such announcements in the portfolio, to which I'm pretty excited. So I'm going to stay on the positive side.
Okay.
And
I hope that's true. What about even earlier? Like in the typically, although we're sort of seeing maybe some changes in this area, but typically Armenian startups would raise their sort of very early stage pre-seed rounds in Armenia. Then seed would maybe be a mix of Armenia and some global investors. Now we've seen some seed rounds be done completely in Armenia, which I think Formula and BANA were part of. Pre-launches round that was done all in Armenia. One of the things I was reading in preparation for our conversation today was in Q3, growth stage rounds like the Bs and Cs had an uptick compared to Q3 of 2022. Although I think that's just because growth was so bad in 2022 that it was easy to have a 7% uptick. But early stage rounds, like seed rounds and stuff, was down almost half, I think. Do you see a risk in some of the pre-seeds not even sort of taking off, being able to get their seed rounds and dying prematurely?
I think the reason that we had less pre-seed seeds in US is because before this recession, it was kind of normal to get into Series A without having your product market fit. It was not normal, but there have been many cases to get there. And now as investors look into more numbers, they want more sustainable growing companies. They want to have this POC before investing. And we used to say that we are cautious a little because our angels invest in companies that already have initial traction.
Right.
Not huge number of traction, but some initial traction just to prove that someone needs the product, their users or pre-buyers or whatever. And now that's the trend everywhere because of this current situation. And I guess that's the reason that we see less and less rounds like this, like at these stages, because founders struggling to prove for the seed stage what they didn't prove in Series A before. Right. So it was a little, some people say that was a little artificial growth back then. It's hard to give exact feedback on it, but maybe this is the more realistic and on the ground approach to startups, and they need to think that the investments might not come, and they need to survive for longer periods. And for the pre-seed or idea stage, it's good to have grant schemes or other money available for you to build initial products to test. But after you reach some level, it needs to be sustainable. So if it's sustainable, you will raise money. But if you think about only living on money and investment money, that's becoming harder and harder. And also it's industry specific. Of course, there are industries that are always capital intensive and will have this capital.
Artem from Bardeen had this great line last year on the podcast. He said before 2022, raising money was per slide in a deck. It was like $1 million a deck. So if you had a 10 slide deck, you would raise 10 million just by sending a few emails. So I think even if it's exaggerated, which it obviously is, but it makes sense that there was a healthy correction to that kind of easy access to capital. Let's come to our region a little bit. You just came from the Touch Summit in Georgia last week, I think, early December. This is going to come out at the end of December. Tell us a little bit about how Armenia and Georgia compare to one another in terms of their ecosystems. We often hear about Armenia certainly being a regional leader at least in startups and in tech. What are some interesting things you observed in Georgia that we can take some lessons from? Yeah,
we had a great trip to Tbilisi last week and visiting Touch Summit, which is one of their biggest tech events. And we got definitely some things to learn from each other in terms of quality of startups, at least the ones we saw in the competition, in the open mic. We were like in a judge in that open mic space, and it's we see that Armenian startups are more like global thinking from the day one compared to Georgians from our like subjective observations, and several ways to compare, and we see better deal flow here now. But there were other aspects that was interesting for us to explore. For instance, their banks are more active in startup ecosystem. They support events. They support their angel network, which was created almost a couple years ago. It's called Aangel, and banks are supporting their activities. Particularly, one of their biggest bank is very active in the startup ecosystem. If I'm not mistaken, they were also one of the supporters to bring 500 global into Georgia. And I have seen also a nice synergy of working with a governmental organization, which is, I believe, comparable to our HTI, and the international donor firms to collaborate in creating a good atmosphere in the country, both for angel investing and for startups and opportunities for grants and other co-working spaces and stuff like that for startups. Regarding angel investing specifically, I think they did a good job on promoting the topic in the country and in the business communities. Kind of brought that status to Georgia of being angel investor, and interestingly, their angels are looking for deals outside of Georgia as well. Maybe because of current state in the country in terms of the deal flow, but still that's really great to see the progress they managed to do to get in this period of time. And we were talking about some collaboration opportunities for the next year, so hopefully we will do something together as well.
What does the inclusion of non-tech community actors like banks and stuff bring to not just the investment community but the startup ecosystem as a whole? Like, if Armenia had more of its banking sector involved, what would that give tangibly to the ecosystem?
It's a topic to think about, to give more details, but from the first hand it brought popularity. We know that we live in a kind of tech bubble, and even inside tech community, it's not like everyone knows every startup or all the investment vehicles we got in Armenia, and that's definitely a communication issue, if we can name it like that. And bringing big names and also involving the teams of these banks inside in these activities, I think it creates better understanding of what is a startup, how they're working, and events like this support the idea of investing in startup, judging which one is good, which one is bad, and seeing many aspects of the startup community, seeing the successful stories from abroad. They had many guests from US and Europe mainly, and it will widespread the topic. That's the first hand idea.
Does it do that? Like in the case of banks specifically, does it do that by? Are there investment vehicles that banks can offer to their banking clients, even including like investors, obviously investor clients? I mean, to invest in Georgian startups, or does that have to be done through a more traditional investment organizations, such as a business network or a business angel network, or
in Georgian case, as much as I know, they are cooperating with Aangel, so they are bringing their clients, also their staff, to their pitching sessions. They're sponsoring the pitching sessions and having a nice event out of it to promote also the startups and the investment vehicle as it is. But I like last week also we had our angel conference. This was our 6th year we were doing it, and we were excited to host president of EVN, Jane, and former vice chair of EVN, Finnish Angel Network, Anna to Armenia. And Anna was especially giving presentation on how Finland became a kind of startup nation, and they came up with the challenge as a network themselves. Of course, there have been many other institutions working simultaneously, but as a network, they were formed in 2012, and they were 18 members and struggling to popularize the topic in Finland and develop a startup scene as well. And one of the things he mentioned that supported and accelerated the growth of a Finnish network and Finnish startup ecosystem, it was that low interest rate loans to startups, and if you fail, you don't need to pay it back.
Wow, that's incredible.
And it was that vehicle was created in cooperation between government, banks, and startup community. So it was a synergy working. And Finland is a little, I believe, comparable to Armenia, because there are 5 million something people. Also, they got bigger territory, but and she was telling that like, for instance, Slash now is one of the most popular events taking place in Europe, tech-related events. And a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, I don't remember, they had 25,000 guests to Helsinki for Slash, and she was like, it was too much for the city to handle this amount of guests. So this year they plan to have it in a more modest way, so that it won't exceed the 12,000 people to guests. So nice problem to have. And she was especially addressing the issue that Finland is considered and is like a cold country with a little amount of sunlight during the day, and it was not place to go as a tourist, typical place to go as a tourist. So they needed to create special sources, reasons for people to come to Finland to explore. I was like, I tried to record a couple minutes, and then I was like holding my phone for 15 minutes because there was the part I wanted not to record. And it was really impressive what they managed to do. Another thing she said, I can share if we got time, was that a lot of collaboration was done, especially with Sweden, but not only. They managed to travel through Europe to see how, to have this networking and connection between angels via their network, and to learn from them and use these connections to accelerate growth of their startups. They also went to Tel Aviv, they went to US, so they did a lot of trips in the beginning. First of all, to show their newbie members what they want to become, and then have all these connections, networks, and all the benefits it brings into the table. So it was truly inspiring to hear them and thinking what we can implement here.
We're lucky in a sense that 40, 50 years ago, maybe I'm getting the numbers a bit off, but there was a time when the primary innovation ecosystem you would look at would just be the US, at least when it came to tech entrepreneurship. But we're kind of lucky now that we have other models that are in some ways closer to Armenia's scenario to observe and learn from and implement into our own innovation ecosystem? Because very large markets like the US sometimes might not fit well into a small country like Armenia. But now we have examples like Estonia, Finland, and others, especially even in Eastern Europe and the Middle East, that you can really draw some great lessons from. And it's also always interesting to hear people from our ecosystem, when they're speaking about those contrasts, sometimes speak about some of the advantages that we have in comparison to those. For example, we have much better ties to some really important institutions in Western Europe and the US and places where influence really goes a long way. And we have our compatriots working in those organizations that can be the first bridge between Armenia and those parts of bigger ecosystems that could help drive growth here. So I hope we have people in our government and the various bodies that work on improving these things, taking note of all that and helping drive those changes. So now, last question. We spoke about 2024, but looking a bit further ahead, as an ecosystem player, I won't ask you just about BANA, but in general, what's the one thing you hope to see in 5 years in the ecosystem that we don't have today?
I hope it will be more than one,
Sure.
but I want to see exits.
Exits, yeah.
Yeah, from my understanding, it will be a turning point for angels, startups, and all aspects of the ecosystems will benefit from it. Currently, you talked about government. I see a big gap of in the ecosystem is the PR outside Armenia. We are kind of still hidden gem for Europe and US. Well, not Armenian networks, but
right.
Yeah, and proper promotion of the local tech, like Armenian tech, to have it as a brand, Armenian tech in the world will also uplift and help everyone. The startups who are raising abroad, the foreign investors who want to, explore new opportunities, diversify their markets, and also locals hugely to outreach someone if they know that there's Armenian tech which is popular. It will help a lot. It can be done and should be done, I believe, by government. Of course, we do, and other players in the ecosystem do various activities. For instance, the EVN is now they now know Armenia scene better because not only this time we had the president of EVN, but we also a couple times invited their board members in previous years. So those who came into Armenia, now they are ambassadors of Armenia. And I hear comments from other participants that, they were talking about Armenia all the time and they're very impressed and stuff like that. So it's creating a positive image of your country and tech scene in overall abroad, and an exit will do it itself. But before that, and I believe in parallel to that, there needs to be action taken to promote Armenian tech in the world.
December of 2028, 5 years from now, we'll do this again and see how it went. Thank you so much, Sona. Appreciate you coming on to help us recap the last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.